Our next contact disease is leprosy. Leprosy is a disease with many historical implications. A lot of stories and tales have been told about leprosy and those afflicted with this disease. The social expulsion of many individuals with leprosy has led to a serious stigma against individuals afflicted by this disease. In the past, people suffering from leprosy were required to carry and ring bells and shout "unclean" as they approached others. This disease has been documented in many historical records and religious texts. It continued for thousands of years and still afflicts some today, though it's not nearly as common as it used to be in the past. Today, this disease is referred to as Hansen's disease, named after the scientist that discovered that leprosy was in fact caused by the bacterium Mycobacterium leprae. If you recognize Mycobacterium leprae, Mycobacterium is the same genus as tuberculosis, or Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Unlike tuberculosis, Mycobacterium leprae is transmitted by skin contact and respiratory droplets. But similar to tuberculosis, this microbe has a very long incubation period and can take about 3 to 6 years of close contact with an individual with the disease for it to be acquired. However, children do appear to be more susceptible to the disease. The disease generally impacts cooler areas of the body, such as the extremities, hands, feet, and face, and can lead to tumor-like skin lesions called lepromas, neurological damage to these areas. This may lead to curling of the fingers, otherwise known as claw hand, thickening of the earlobes, collapse of the nose, and possibly blindness. The individuals often lose the ability to perceive pain, and accidental injuries may occur, resulting in serious deformities. Fortunately, antibiotics can be used to stop the progression of the disease, and patients with Hansen's disease now can look forward to a normal life. While there are new cases of Hansen's disease every year in the United States, many of these individuals are no longer treated at leprosariums and instead are treated at outpatient facilities throughout the country. Our next disease that we'll be discussing, also a contact disease, is Staphylococcus aureus, which can cause oozing pus coming out from pimples. These look like this. This staphylococcal infection may just look like a simple pimple, but Staphylococcus aureus can lead to pimples of the deadly variety. These skin infections can eventually cause the microbe to penetrate through the skin layers and into the bloodstream. When this happens, patients usually have 1 to a few days to live. Staphylococcus aureus lives on nearly everyone's skin, but it's the pathogenic variety that can be deadly. They live also in the nose, throat, eyes, and mouth of infected individuals and can reside there for long periods of time. The pathogenic strains can begin with inflamed lesions with a core of pus. These abscesses can progress to boils, which can develop into carbuncles. The carbuncles are larger and deeper lesions, and these can reach baseball size. These are extremely painful and very dangerous because these are the type that can infect and invade the bloodstream. Now, while these staphylococcal infections can be transmitted from person to person, they are especially deadly in the form of a hospital-acquired infection known as MRSA. MRSA stands for methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus and is an antibiotic-resistant strain of this pathogen. It used to be acquired in just hospitals or nursing homes, but now MRSA can be transmitted through communities, in locker rooms, in supermarkets, and schools. Community-acquired Staphylococcus aureus is also made the news because this form of MRSA has been able to infect professional athletes in their locker rooms as well. It's particularly transmissible through locker rooms because this is where individuals will share hygienic products such as razors, bar soap, and washcloths. There's another type of antibiotic-resistant strain of Staphylococcus aureus known as vancomycin intermediate Staphylococcus aureus and vancomycin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, VISA and VRSA respectively. These forms of Staphylococcus aureus are particularly serious and can cause sepsis, pneumonia, endocarditis, and osteomyelitis, which can be deadly. Staphylococcus aureus can also lead to toxic shock syndrome, in particular coming to light in the 1970s when women who were on their period would insert a tampon and leave it there for extended periods of time. Some strains of Staphylococcus aureus would secrete an exotoxin that would lead to high fever, nausea, vomiting, and peeling of the skin. This could also lead to a dangerous drop in blood pressure that leads to life-threatening shock, with a 3% fatality rate. Toxic shock syndrome can be mitigated by using tampons for only short periods of time. Next, we'll cover soil-borne diseases, beginning first with anthrax. Anthrax is caused by a bacterium known as Bacillus anthracis. It is a very deadly disease that is carried and just exists naturally in the soil around the world. It is primarily found in large warm-blooded mammals, sheep, cattle, and goats as they graze on this soil. These anthrax spores can then infect the skin, and humans can acquire Bacillus anthracis on their skin, especially in the leather tanning industry. This form of anthrax, cutaneous anthrax, generally is not deadly, just creating an open lesion or sore on the skin that can be treated by antibiotics and resolving on its own. There are other forms of anthrax, however, that are transmitted by biowarfare. This includes inhalation anthrax. Inhalation anthrax can also be transmitted by dead animals in leather tanning industries, but in recent times in the United States is more common with the anthrax scare that happened in 2001, where Bacillus anthracis endospores were packaged in letters and sent to individuals in the media and the government. Symptoms of inhalation anthrax are very similar to flu-like symptoms, causing breathing problems and fever, and thus would normally be difficult to diagnose. A third type of anthrax usually results from ingesting inadequately cooked meat, but could also be a result of bioweapons warfare. And this is referred to as gastrointestinal anthrax, where the endospores are eaten and taken in to the digestive system. These cases are particularly deadly, but thankfully very rare. Gastrointestinal anthrax is characterized by abdominal pain, vomiting, and diarrhea, which again is normally very hard to diagnose and differentiate from other foodborne illnesses. Another type of soil-borne bacterial pathogen is tetanus. Tetanus is also called lockjaw because it's associated with uncontrolled muscle spasms that prevent an individual from being able to relax the muscles throughout the body, including those in the face. This microbe is caused by Clostridium tetani, and Clostridium tetani is acquired from the soil, particularly from wounds or injuries that then allow the microbe to invade and infect the bloodstream. These microbes, just like Bacillus anthracis, are natural inhabitants of the soil and are found around the world. Clostridium tetani causes muscle contraction known as tetany, and tetany can affect all the muscles of the body, including those of the diaphragm, not allowing an individual to exhale, leading to death by an inability to breathe. Thankfully, in the United States today, there is a vaccine against tetanus, dropping cases from 500 before the vaccine to just 30 in the United States per year. This includes only about 5 deaths every year from tetanus. Nearly all cases of the tetanus that we see in the United States today are from unvaccinated individuals. It is important to remember to get your booster shot for tetanus, though, which is required every 10 years. Otherwise, you can become susceptible to this disease by a simple puncture or cut out in nature. This booster shot is usually given in conjunction with the pertussis and diphtheria vaccines known as Tdap. Unfortunately, in developing countries around the world, tens of thousands of individuals die from tetanus every year, including those dying from neonatal or newborn tetanus. This is a result of newborns being birthed on dirt floors or umbilical cords being cut by dirty knives that contain the tetanus bacteria. Our last soil-borne disease is leptospirosis, also known as swamp fever. Leptospirosis is caused by Leptospira interrogans, and this microbe can be found in many non-human hosts, including dogs, rodents, and many other wild animals. Because this microbe can be carried by rats, it's not just found in rural areas, but can also be found in cities as well. Contaminated waterways, including those after hurricanes, floods, or heavy rains, or even in triathlons where swimming is a part of the competition, can result in this disease, leading to jaundice, fever, headache, nausea, and chills, in many cases requiring hospitalization. Thankfully, like many bacteria discussed in this chapter, leptospirosis can also be treated by antibiotics.